All right, let's talk some Houston Texans draft. A very important draft here, as again, it's one of those franchise-altering drafts. It really is. We'll look back at this 5 years from now, either as the draft that completely changed the outlook of the Texans moving forward, or the draft that they could have, completely changed the outlook looking forward and blew it, and this is what got everyone in the organization fired. We'll see how it works out, but the two guys at the top, it was just such an interesting decision that they made. Obviously, Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud were the two players that everyone was wondering, which one were they going to take, basically. They have number 2 overall pick. They decide, let's not choose. Let's get them both. They fell in love with both of them so much, they wanted both of them, and I look at this several different ways. So on I made a video called 7 Winners of Day 1 of the Draft. On that video, the Texans made the list. I gave them one of my spots for winners because they didn't screw it up by not taking a quarterback. And I think that would have been the worst case scenario, just because you got an opportunity to get a guy like C.J. Stroud. Get a guy like C.J. Stroud. He's not perfect. What quarterback is? Get him at number 2. If it doesn't work in a couple years, there'll be more good quarterback prospects available. There will. I think Will Anderson's very good. I think Will Anderson is worth a top pick like that, a top 5 pick if he is available. I don't think it's crazy to have him as your number 1, non-quarterback available. I had Jalen Carter, but again, there's the off-the-field stuff there, so I get it. But still, I can see why you would love him. I don't know if I love how much they traded for Will Anderson. I just don't. Will Anderson, a great player. It's not a criticism towards him, but you're giving up premium draft capital. I mean, next year's draft pick could end up being a top 5 pick, and that's what people are expecting. I believe, people are predicting it'll be a top 5 pick next year. So you could be talking about pick 12 and pick, 4 or something like that for an edge rusher who we haven't seen play a snap yet. The expectations basically mean he has to be a star edge rusher. Like, even if he's just a Pro Bowler, that's probably a bit underwhelming, given up the draft capital you're giving up for him. So they're really expecting great things from him. I think they maybe gave up a bit much, but I think they got a great player. And, a lot of Texans fans have kind of pushed back saying, hey, we had extra draft capital to give, so it's more okay to do it. Sure, still would have liked it better, though, if they gave up Cleveland's pick instead of their own. Next up, we have Juice Scruggs. The center here, who, the chart you see, I should have explained this earlier, but the chart you see to the side of me, what you see is the player's name, what position they play, where they were drafted, and then where were they ranked on the consensus big board. So for Scruggs, he was drafted 62nd. On the consensus big board, they had him at 172nd. So most people consider this a reach by nearly about 100 picks, which for a second round pick is amazingly significant. Like, I don't know if that has happened since I've been covering the draft. I'm sure it has, but it's a huge jump. I mean, I remember when the Patriots got all of their, people freaked out about them for Tyquan Thornton, which that might have been similar, actually. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. It feels like he's more of a project type player, but for the Texans, I think they potentially feel like, let's get some project players. It's going to take us some time to develop our young players anyway, so why not get another guy who could potentially, help out eventually, even if it's not year 1. That's probably the logic, but again, typically you want to not be overdrafting players, which I think most people would think that they did. Nathaniel Dell is a very interesting player. I like Nathaniel Dell a decent amount. I mean, again, he's someone who the size is just going to mean that some people just wouldn't draft him at all due to him being 5'8", 165 pounds. He is a slot guy through and through, and he's not overly fast. He runs a 4.49, so if you ignore all that stuff, it's actually pretty good. The tape's very good, but not overly fast and not overly big. It's more of the athleticism and just the physical traits that people don't love about him, but had production, and so there is reason to believe he could come in and play well for Houston. And again, they wanted to get a they wanted to get a wide receiver to help out their young quarterback, C.J. Stroud. I think that's a smart play. I think this is a good pick, and as you know, my expression goes, don't let a day 2 go by without getting at least a safety or a wide receiver. They get their wide receiver, so check box on that one. They then went out and another reach here, Dylan Horton. They drafted him at 109. He was projected for 168. So, you know, okay, getting a guy, but again, after 100 players, I'm not that concerned about a reach like that. Still don't love it, but I'm not as concerned about it. If you do like a player, you know, maybe go out and make it happen. Okay, fine. I can understand why you would want to make something like that happen with Horton. So, you know, again, if you like the analytics, stuff like that, not overly impressive with Horton, but, you know, remains to be seen on potentially maybe he can be better in the future. You know, maybe he can improve. Maybe they saw something that the average, that most of us didn't. I don't know. Next up on the list, you have Henry Tuo. I'm not sure if I said that right. I'm pretty sure I did not. He was someone who, on the consensus big board, they liked him. They had him at 67. Part of that was, I think a lot of people making mock drafts thought linebackers were going to go earlier, but this just was not a great linebacker draft. Jack Campbell, the only guy who really was, you know, a team made sure they went up and got. So, you know, I think that's probably part of what happened is maybe that overvalued his draft stock due to just supply and demand. The NFL did not overvalue that. They still draft him at 167. Again, I did actually check out a decent amount of his tape. Wasn't overly impressed. So at the same time, though, 167, that's a great pick at 167. Just I would not have liked it at 67. So very weird that they ended up with, you know, it's one of those things where if you swap him and Juice Ruggs, it feels totally normal and feels like it makes sense. There's kind of one of those weird selections. 3 picks left. Again, 3 potential depth players. I mean, the last 2, Xavier Hutchinson and Brandon Hill, every time skill position gets selected there, part of me wonders, is it possible those guys are just supposed to be, you know, special teamers? That's definitely something that happens a good chunk. But with Xavier Hutchinson, again, people liked him. He was 119 on the consensus big board. So we're talking early 4th rounder. He ends up going way back in this draft. At pick 205 is where he ends up going. He was Pro Football Focus's 7th highest rated wide receiver in college last year. That's out of over 1,000 eligible receivers. So, you know, that makes you feel good about him. Not overly explosive, not someone who has a great physical talent. He's 6'2", so he has a little bit of height to him, but it has production. So, you know, definitely for pick 205, that's an interesting one. And also Jarrett Patterson, another guy who I did not mention, but another guy who, again, you look at his draft stock and where he was supposed to go. Hey, if you're getting guys who are 50 picks above where they are supposed to be, that's pretty good. Patterson, kind of what's interesting about him, he had a bad year last year, but had good years previously. And so maybe if you think there was an explanation for last year, or maybe you're just taking a flyer on it when there's already been 200 picks before him, not a bad pick at all. In fact, I would say a good pick. So I'm a fan of this one as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Texans draft. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.